Well, we are back to Kent's seminar series, part 4E, if I recall, and we're going from geology to biology. Kent's still bitching that there's lies in the textbooks. Tell everyone what we're talking about tonight, Kent.
Tonight we're going to be talking about vestigial structures, one of the lies in the textbooks they teach.
Well, of course, in a population, an organ can go vestigial. Kent's brain went vestigial fucking years ago. Before we get going with all of this, we have to define what a vestigial structure is. Vestigial structures in anatomy are organs or structures in the body of an organism that have degenerated and no longer serve their original purpose through evolutionary change. The key thing to take away from this is simple. A vestigial structure can have a function, just that it isn't the same purpose or primary purpose that it initially had when evolution selected for it. So while Kent goes down this topic, whatever structure he goes over, we will go over the organ's original use and current use if it has one that we know about. An example of a vestigial structure is the human appendix. Initially, the appendix in humans was used to digest tough food materials like tree bark. As of currently, the appendix has devolved and now serves the purpose of lower digestive health in holding beneficial bacteria for us. But one can live a perfectly normal, healthy life without it. It is still found in herbivores, and in those mammals, it is much larger and still used organ. So, ready to go?
Oh, no. No.
Demon, we have to get the video going. What do you need?
I'll have a Neapolitan cappuccino, more cappa than chino. Make sure it's got no more than 4 ounces of milk. The beans won't have the right texture otherwise. If you can't handle that, I'll have a venti traditional misto. Please use soy milk with 2 blonde shots, affogato, and ristretto. I'd also love 3 vanilla pumps at the very...
Get your own coffee. Angel and I will get started. I hear Kent has a question.
Are vestigial structures evidence for evolution?
Yes, they are.
I have with me my longtime friend David Reeves up in Tennessee. He and his dad, Richard Reeves, work along with the stuff about Noah's Ark. So bring David in there, brother, if you would.
Aw, isn't that cute? Hey, Demon, Kent made a friend. Say hello.
Nice to meet you, bitch.
Very good.
So how many people can you handle at a time? And what's it cost to go through? And all that kind of stuff.
Kinky. Come on, keep talking dirty.
Yeah, I think that was a little personal.
We can comfortably handle, we've had well over 1,000 people at one time and still not feel too crowded.
Holy fuck, Angel, did Demon put you up to this?
Yes.
Okay, enough of the out-of-context suggestive stuff, please.
Vestigial, like the vestiges, okay? Something that you no longer need. It says a body, part, or organ remaining in a form that is small or imperfectly developed and not able to function.
Incorrect. Sort of. Not able to function for its original purpose. If an organ still serves some purpose, we will keep it. If it alters its original purpose into a new role, it will still be considered vestigial. Another vestigial organ in the human body, some apes, is the coccyx, a bone in the base of the spinal column. It is considered vestigial since it used to be part of the tail structure that we no longer need. It is formed of the fused vertebra. It now serves as an attachment point for a number of ligaments and muscles, giving it a new function. Can you still live without it? Yes. Will you be happy living without it? Probably not, as you would end up with balance issues and, other, important things would no longer function as intended for waste removal. Even with that, it's still vestigial since we no longer have a tail, and to provide the present function, the vertebrae have fused so it is a more rigid structure. Now he goes over the different definitions of vestigial, which is fine. We can accept all of that, but their evidence is evidence for the evolutionary process. Kent really hates evolution, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Well, let's find out why Kent brought on his buddy David.
Now, David, you guys have done quite a bit of work on the vestiges left over from Noah's Ark.
That's
There
right.
are some there are some vestiges left over from 4,400 years ago. Tell us what you know about that. Well, don't take all night, but go ahead.
You know, there are vestiges or remnants left of so many different archaeological finds, which, you know, you can go all over the Holy Land and search those down. Some of those we have on display in the museum. My favorite is probably well, there's an ancient Egyptian rope, and then there is a handle that has the seal of King Hezekiah himself. Like it would be like the presidential seal on a mug, right? But this is something that basically means that King Hezekiah would have had this in his palatial collection of pottery. And we also do like scavenger hunts where you can track down some of those archaeological discoveries. But those are basically vestiges of a time long gone, right? So we use that term in archaeology, the same thing in paleontology and dinosaurs and fossils. But there's this kind of trend for evolutionists to use that term when they're talking about millions of years of evolution and the vestiges of when we used to be hanging from our tails, basically.
Sorry that went a little long. Angel and I wanted you to see how David absolutely missed the mark. Kent asked him for vestiges of Noah's Ark, and David brought up King Hezekiah, whom ruled Judah in 700 BCE, 1700 years after the time Kent thinks the flood of Noah happened. Dude just started talking about random things in his museum. I mean, it's pretty cool stuff, but the seals are not performing the tasks they used to either. Now those seals are being used to show history instead of being used as a seal to seal things from a long-dead king. And that's the entire point. I just love that David gave a completely non-answer to the setup Kent gave him. It's like he had no idea how to answer or had nothing from the alleged flood. After the technical difficulties you saw in the last clip, Kent gives an actually proper definition. The same one we talked about earlier, in fact. So now Kent's fucked because the appendix and coccyx are hard evidence against his position. Does Kent mention any others?
Like the pelvic bones of whales that evolved from four-legged land mammals.
Ha! I guess he does. But yes, the pelvic bone is a vestigial structure in sea mammals and now serves a different purpose, with some organs staying attached to the bone, even though the bone itself isn't attached to another bone in their skeleton. It just floats there in the muscular structure because it is attached to tendons and muscles that are vital. But the bone itself is a vestigial remnant.
This is the kind of propaganda they teach. Here we go. Features of an organism considered to have lost most or all of their original function through evolution. Okay? Like some frogs have a third eyelid called the nictitating membrane. And they'll say, humans have this similar thing in the corner of their eye. That's proof we used to have a third eyelid, like a frog, but we've lost most of it, not all of it yet. This is the kind of evidence. They're so desperate for evidence for their theory, they think that's evidence.
Oh, neat! Another one we haven't mentioned. Yes, this is vestigial. Originally the third eyelid, some mammals still have it, only a few though. In humans, it has gone vestigial and now part of the plica semilaris, which regulates tear drainage. Now we can also talk about random mutations in humans, with this in reference to a few humans actually being born with a working nictitating membrane. So yes, vestigial. We don't need it. It started to go away since it gave us no clear advantage. We adapted and the organ changed into something new. That is textbook vestigial. Now David actually talks about it. Listen.
Well, so that little piece of tissue actually helps with our tear production, and most of the tear ducts and the tear production is so essential for humans that if we did not have it, we would be blind. Now, I'm not talking about like when we cry or whatever. Tears, actually, those tear ducts are functioning all day, every day. They're keeping our eyes moist so that our eyelids don't stick to our eyes. There's so much going on in there. From a design perspective, it's almost like this brilliant engineer said, well, I am going to figure out this way to keep everybody's eyes perfectly moist, perfectly healthy all the time. So we put that right in the corner of our eyes. Has nothing to do with a nictitating membrane.
David is, of course, wrong. The plica simularis, like we said before, helps tear drainage, not production. Tears are produced from the lacrimal gland just above your eyeball and under the eyelids, so that when you blink, new tears are spread across your eyes. Excess fluid drains out over your cheek or through your tear duct and into your nose. That is why you get stuffy nose when you cry. You cry out of your nose. Anyway, this is just helping show that this professional has no idea what he's talking about and hasn't done any research. 10 minutes is all it took me. Next.
The dew claws. Many animals, including, let's say, pigs, cattle, deer, dogs, have dew claws. Reduced non-functional digits that don't touch the ground at all. The foot of the pig, for example, has lost digit 1 completely. Digits 2 and 5, the dew claws, have been greatly reduced. And only digits 3 and 4 support the body. Pigs have 2 claws, the cloven hoof. Let's see. Evolution best explains the existence of dew claws. Now, these vestigial features were inherited from ancestors, which is a larger number. So they used to have 3, 4, 5, and now they've only got 2.
I honestly never thought about the dew claw being vestigial, but thinking about it, it makes sense. So I did some research. In some cases, yes, the dew claw in some animals, not just mammals. Turns out that even though you would think of a dew claw on a canine, we'll get back to that, there are dew claws on mammals, birds, and reptiles. They used to be a digit at the end of a limb, and, well, we have one.
Wait, what?
It's your thumb, Demon. Your thumb.
Oh, right. Of course.
Right. The human thumb is analogous to a dew claw. So the claw, and thus the structure in the past, was support weight, the primary function. In some mammals, like the pig and the deer and the canine, this structure now serves a new purpose: mating. This is why I never thought of a dew claw as vestigial, because it has a new use for canines to allow them to hold onto another canine for mating. So it has a new use rather than supporting weight. A human's little toe is similar in that way, that it still supports weight and balance. So definitionally, yes, the dew claw is vestigial and now has a new use. So, what does Kent's buddy say about it?
Yeah, so the dew claws, there are multiple theories about that, but actually if you look at like big 18-wheelers today, they actually have a second set of tires that are positioned, ready to go. They're usually not touching the ground, but they're there in case of emergency. And you mentioned, Kent, you said pigs have these things, right? Well, pigs are often wallowing in the mire, right? And so when they sink down in the mud, it kind of gives them extra grip. It's like that second set of wheels on an 18-wheeler that is the emergency to help them propel through mud.
What? They say insane shit all the time. How was I supposed to know this one was true?
Well, it is true. But he just admitted that it's vestigial and showed its new use. That is definitely vestigial. Well then, okay, it's a vestigial structure, has a new use, and is therefore evidence for evolution. Good stuff. So why do they speak at all if they're just going to bury themselves?
The dew claw, even if it was losing this, that's the opposite of evolution.
That's right.
That's losing. So what do? You lose everything until you have it all. I see.
The loss of information is something that evolution talks about so often, and it's almost like this is the only proof that most evolutionists have for their theories, is that, well, we see things changing, and then you ask for examples, and it's a loss of information.
Yes, it's a loss of information in a way, but that's the point. A loss in one area is a gain in another area. The idea that we have information we no longer need means we evolved to no longer need them. The dew claw is an example of evolution making other things more efficient and more useful than other parts that are now redundant. Humans evolved to not need an appendix because the liver and gallbladder and pancreas evolved to allow us to consume meat while still allowing the digestion of a plant material, so that we don't need to rely on harder to digest materials for nourishment.
The pileoerector muscle. That's proof of evolution. What is that? There's a little tiny muscle that makes your hair stand up. and it makes it around the hair. You get a little goosebump. How many of you have ever had goosebumps before? They claim this is evidence for evolution. That little muscle right there that pulls on the bottom of your hair and makes it stand up. The erector pili muscle, known as the hair erector muscle, is a small band of smooth muscle tissue that connects the hair follicle to the dermis, that'd be your skin, the layer of skin beneath the epidermis. This muscle plays a crucial role in various physiological processes. Thermal regulation, control your heat, okay? Hair growth and skin development. So it's not vestigial at all, huh? You need it.
Not at all. Yeah, a lot of people say that that dogs, you know, when they are alarmed, their hair will stand up. And so basically, this is just a remnant in us when we used to be some other type of a creature. But when you think about it, goosebumps are actually alerting you to colder weather. Usually after goosebumps, if your temperature, if your body core temperature continues to drop, then it turns into shivering. So the goosebumps are the first indication. And then if your core temperature drops too much, then you start to shiver, which is moving your muscles and your body in a way to produce heat. So it's serving a very important purpose.
Holy fuck, they completely missed the mark. And David's dead wrong. Like, Jello head wrong. I'll get to him in a minute. Ken mentioned the use and purpose of the erector pili as it pertains to animals with fur. Dogs, cats, etc. But it also exists in animals like the porcupine. In them, it's not vestigial. And that's the point. In humans, it is. All the things Kent mentioned are useless in humans. We don't have enough hair for thermal regulation, but animals with fur do. Hair growth and skin development, we don't have the same skin anymore. And we hardly have any hair at all for those muscles to be useful. And then David opens his mouth and claims that us having goosebumps are the first signs of us being cold. No, the fact that I am fucking cold is the first sign that I'm fucking cold. And it is alert that the weather is fucking cold. If I get colder, I start shivering. That is not the reaction of the erector pili itself. It's a reaction to your body getting pumped with adrenaline, which causes your muscles to start contracting and then you start shivering. Look, everyone, I know these clips are longer than normal, but damn, they are really good at showing how uninformed these two are. Like this.
Even though we don't have as much hair as animals, many animals do, it traps a layer of air against your body. It's insulation.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where? Where is the layer of air between the hairs on your skin that is protected from the outside cold? Wind just goes right through the tiny little hairs we have on our skin, if you even have hair on yours. Some of us hardly have any hair at all. I mean, how stupid can you be? He goes on for a bit about the appendix and the whale, which we already went over earlier tonight. And it's a bunch of nuh-uh from Kent with ignorant nodding from his co-host.
Back in 1925, somebody wrote a book and said there are 180 vestigial structures in the human body. It's just because they didn't know what they did.
Yeah.
Not because they're vestigial, they just didn't know. Okay?
It's because we're like a 10-year-old compared to our creator and designer, right? We don't understand the function of these things. But as science progresses, as technology progresses, and as we gain more knowledge about the human body, that 180 number has just been dropping. Every year, it seems like they're knocking off one more of these supposed vestigial organs, saying, well, we didn't understand it. Now we know it actually served a purpose.
There are about 80-ish organs and structures of the human anatomy that are vestigial. I am going to repeat this once again because these two are dumb. Vestigial does not mean useless. Vestigial means no longer functions the same way it evolved for. Do you got it now?
Human appendix has been proposed to be a vestigial structure, a structure that has lost all or most of its original function, or that has evolved to take on a new function. The suggestion was that the shrunken remnant of the cecum thought to have been present in remote ancestors of humans. So you make up a story. We used to need a bigger appendix back millions of years ago when we had a rougher diet. your appendix. Once upon a time, at least this author is honest, it's a fairy tale, okay? Once upon a time, okay? Just imagine, boys and girls, SpongeBob style, okay? It used to store inedible things people once ate, like bark, fruit peelings, and rocks. How many people do you know that eat bark and rocks?
That's the point. We don't eat bark and rocks anymore. We have better ways to get nourishment. That's why it's now vestigial, Kent. Please stop giving evidence for my side of the argument. It's not much of a fight this way. Look, Kent, David, the point of a presentation is to display how coherent your views are or how incoherent the opposing views are. When you point out how the appendix isn't useful anymore for its evolutionary purpose, you aren't helping your cause. Now, Kent goes on, funny enough, the whale's pelvic bone structure. We already addressed this, but he mentions that it still has a function, but ignores that it isn't the primary function. The primary function of the pelvis is part of the main bone structure of your hip and my hip, where the legs can attach so you and I can walk. That is the main function. Whales are still sea creatures and don't have legs. I know, this comes as a shocker to Kent. However, the attachment points of muscle and ligaments still needed something to attach to. So the whale pelvis remains, but it is disconnected from its skeletal structure. This falls under the definition of vestigial.
Hold that thought.
What for?
How does it feel to have survived such a crazy bitch?
Well, it feels like I just went through the ringer. Does he have any more?
The coccyx, that's your tailbone, has no present function.
We did this one earlier too. I swear I didn't bring them up at the start because he was going to. So yeah, it doesn't have a function in and of itself. That's not what vestigial means. But it does have a use. If you lost it, you would shit your pants like I'm sure he's doing on a regular basis. I mean, if this much is coming out of his mouth, it must be coming out of his ass twice as fast. From here, he does a bunch of shorts like the wisdom teeth we don't need, like the fact that we can wiggle our ears, which is from when we needed to turn our ears to hear in different directions. Now we don't, but some of us can still wiggle our ears. He continues after showing, giving examples, and pretty much proving there are vestigial structures that now have residual uses after their primary uses are no longer needed, thus showing textbook evidence that evolution did in fact occur, and he is flat out in a state of denial. So what did you two think about Kent's guest, Demon, Angel?
I'm sorry, we don't give a fuck.
Somehow I doubt Angel would use those exact words. She's very sweet.
Yeah.
Cool. In conclusion, there are vestigial structures in many kinds of creatures on the planet because evolution happened. I do love it when they give evidence against their own point and then say it's evidence for them. Now, last week, Kent did not put out a video, he just showed a debate, so we'll be exploring another person with an ID 10 tier between the keyboard and the chair. Till then, I am Corsi, and this is the Fluffy Atheist. Pet those like and sub buttons, and remember, a little research goes a long way. Let the Fluffy Atheist do it for you.